recording. Let's get rid of that. And all these floating heads are in front of buttons. Great, there we go. Cool, now we'll see that.
Yes.
Awesome. All right, welcome to the Social Distancing DenverScript show. What's up? If y'all don't know, there's this whole thing happening in November that you might want to like do, and that's vote. But Guillermo was very nice and reminded us that, hey, tonight is actually the first presidential debate. And also Stephen Colbert's people put in better know about it and just for Colorado. So if you go to bit.ly/vote-co, that's the short link for this. Tonight's schedule. So we'll do like intro, job announcements. 6 p.m. will be Mike, imperative, declarative, programming, what's the big F and deal. And I will be doing a presentation also on writing more I have to remember what I'm talking about. Writing more meaningful tests, unit tests. There we go. Yeah, words. We'll have some questions, closing thoughts, and then at 7 p.m. is the presidential debate, which if you go to bit.ly/2020-first-debate, both these bit.ly URLs I made, and I can't believe they weren't already taken, which kind of shocked me. So we're going to try and keep our presentations pretty short. Hopefully, we actually want to try and end at 6:30 to give people at least 30 minutes to like grab some food, do whatever if you are wanting to watch the debate. Job announcements, if anyone has job announcements, please post them in the chat of this meeting and we will share those out afterwards. We are an open collective that allows us to take nonprofit donations, which goes to funding like our Meetup account, this Zoom Pro account, you know, all the little things that require us to do this meetup. A call for speakers. We're always looking for new speakers. Hey, actually the reason you have two organizers of this meetup speaking is, you guessed it, we had no speakers volunteer. So that is why you're now forced to listen to me even longer. Our code of conduct is, you know, be excellent to each other, be inclusive, invite others to chat. Of course, that one kind of like, you know, when we're in person. But still, you know, invite others to chat outside of this. And no statement questions like, well, here's what I think. You know, after someone gives their presentation, it's kind of like a crappy way to lob a question at them. But if you want to see the full code of conduct, go to DenverScript.com. This is basically just a big linked website to our YouTube channel that has all of our recordings, to our Open Collective donation website, and anything else you could possibly need from us. Cool. So what's going on in JS land?
Sweet. And then while he's pulling that up, just to elaborate a little bit more on that link that we had there for the bit.ly that Matt made, either through that or if you just Google Better Know About It. Colbert's team did one for each state. And if you go to the Colorado one for that link that Matt had, it can link you to check your status. You can see when, how, where, and how to register as well as to vote. So all the information you need is all in place. So if you haven't done that yet, it's a cool place to do that. So what's going on in JavaScript land? For those of you that are new, every month we look to see what's going on and we share stuff that we're excited about, even if it's not new, but stuff that we've seen. So it's been a while, but the Chrome team finally put out an updates video, and this time was based on Chrome 85. Nothing mind-blowing there, but we'll go through some of the highlights. If you're interested, the highlights video that shows some of these things with some code examples is at that link, as well as the release notes that'll talk you through some of these things. So the first one, style editing for CSS in JavaScript. Previously, DevTools had trouble where if you had CSS properties that were applied from JS, you weren't able to then go and dynamically change those attributes in the DOM, and now you can. Lighthouse 6 is out. So for those of you that use Lighthouse a lot and performance tools that are there, they are now on Lighthouse 6. As always, new scores and metrics are in there. I'm not going to go through them all, but you can dig into a little bit. The one thing is to point out that you will see the change is I feel like they're constantly changing what this is called and what exactly it shows, but the first contentful paint is now what they're calling, or what they used to have the marker for first meaningful paint. So again, if these kinds of rendering things are things you use, you can dig into their different definitions of what they are, but just know that FMP has gone away and it's now FCP. Oh, this one's kind of cool. They've been working over the past probably couple of years now to enhance the functionality of the code that you can write in the console, to make it more useful for you to write like little snippets and things. Some of you that have been coming for a while remember that over like maybe about a year ago, they started adding a lot of enhancements there in terms of things like eager evaluation and auto completing things for you, both with dot and bracket notation. They're adding some latest JS features, and probably one of the coolest ones that they just added is now optional chaining will also give you the autocomplete option. So similar how like if you were writing some object dot whatever, and as of a few releases back, it would give you a little eager evaluation of all of your options that you could choose from. That will now also work if you're writing an optional chain in the console. So kind of a neat little helper. And it's interesting to see. It's kind of cool to see, like, especially if you join us every month here, you can see how they kind of pick an area of the code, of their code, and sort of start building out the feature set. For a while, it was like, tooltips and hovering on the DOM. It seems like now they're putting more and more time into the console usefulness. So another cool thing to see there. So that's what I'm excited about this month. What are you guys excited about? And this can be, as always, for those of you that are new, this can either be something that is, really high level, either software architecture or language level developments or even frameworks, or it could be something that is personal to you that you're excited about, that maybe isn't a new thing, but something that you just started working with. Maybe you solved some gnarly bug, or you started working with a new framework, or started working through a new course that you'd like to share. Let us know. What are you guys excited about? Matt, do you have anything that you're excited about? Actually, you just sent me that message privately, so let me share it with the group.
Oh, sorry. I wasn't meant just for you. That was meant for everybody. Let me change that.
Look at this. Links for voting. And there. Oh, there you go. Now you guys have it twice. You went from having it no times to twice. So there you go. Matt, why don't you tell us something you're excited about with your stuff that you're working on?
Oh, yeah. You know what? I'm gonna put like a high five moment right now. I turned a hackathon project into a actual, like, we're gonna do this shit. Which, hey, it's React testing library. So now, granted, we're a big organization at Health, which means it won't be until next year until we get to work on it. But testing. Cool. So yeah, that's what I'm excited about.
Well, congrats. Anybody else? Either a high five moment that was just kind of a cool thing that happened, or something new that you saw, something new that you're working on?
I haven't used it in production yet, but I just did like a little, I don't know, sketch. What do they call it? POC with React grid layout, which is pretty sweet.
How was it?
I thought it was going to be really impossible, but it seemed pretty easy and straightforward. So if I can do it, it's not that hard.
There you go. And then when you were learning it, or when you were starting to mess around with it, what were there any specific resources that you used that were helpful that you would recommend others also utilize?
Real quick,
Oh yeah,
I missed it. I was typing. I didn't multitask.
React grid layout, I think, is what the npm package is called. And yeah, the examples in their documentation are really sweet.
Cool. That's always nice to hear that you didn't have to go somewhere else. They just had really good docs. That's fantastic. Cool. Thanks for sharing. And good to see you again.
You too, dude.
It's fun to see people that pop in and out that are like months between visits. Who else has got something they're excited about? Oh, here we go.
Courtney, you're also overdue to give a talk.
Definitely. Ryan started his first Node React Oh, cool. Started your first Node internship tomorrow. Congratulations, dude.
Thanks. I'm really excited and really nervous at the same time.
Yeah, cool. Round of virtual applause. Congratulations. Yeah, how fun. That's gonna be great. You should let us know how it goes. Maybe, what might be kind of a cool talk, especially for like people that are newer, is if you want, maybe after you do it, or after you're there for a few months or whatever, if you want to give like a short talk on maybe some of the stuff that you learned and how to ramp up quickly, that might be kind of an interesting talk.
That sounds awesome, actually. Yeah, I'll keep that in the back of my mind as I progress through all of this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we'll have a good target audience, because we do get a lot of like people that are just starting that come and join us, and so hearing from somebody like, hey, I just did this thing, here's how it went, that could be a cool one.
Here's another one from Jerry. Recently worked out how to connect backbone models and collections to a Redux store to bring sanity to the orderly application.
Wow.
I do not envy you, man. I had to do roughly the same thing at Go Spot Check, and oh my God, if no one's worked in Backbone, that's like the OG of JavaScript MVC. It is horrible.
Wow.
I disagree. I don't think it's horrible, but people do horrible things with it.
Okay, fair enough. That's very fair. It's not always the language or the code. It's usually in the way someone has implemented it in a very evil way.
Yeah, it just doesn't care enough to stop you from doing goofy things. So people get in trouble with it.
And Lisa starts her first software engineering job on Monday. Virtual round of applause for Lisa. All right. Congrats. Man, a lot of good news. And in the middle of like a pandemic starting, people like still like landing gigs and stuff. That's not starting, but in the middle of sort of like this ongoing thing. Man, that's great. Congrats, guys.
Yeah, glad to hear it.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. All right, let's do just like one or two how you're staying sane, and let's move on, because I want to be mindful of the time here, because we're already at 10 to 6. Let's do one good, like with the pandemic going on, everything's still mostly virtual. Someone give us a good, like, how you're not going crazy. Yeah, go ahead, Courtney.
I'm taking a music class at Swallow Hill.
You're taking a what?
I'm taking a music class at Swallow Hill.
Huh?
It's really fun.
What, oh, okay, so it's like music theory?
No, that one's, I mean, they have all kinds of classes, intro guitar, intro singing, everything. And they're all on Zoom, so you don't have to drive anywhere, which is great.
Oh, cool.
Who's this, sir?
Swallow Hill Music.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, congrats. Sweet. Thank you for sharing. Okay, so usually, we go on as long as, people have stuff to contribute, because, we always want to hear from you guys. But in the interest of keeping the meeting shorter today, let's go ahead and end it there. Thanks everybody for sharing. And who's our first speaker? Matt, is it
That'd
you?
be Mike. Nope.
Mr.
Mike.
Frazier. Sweet.
Cool. How do I do this with Zoom again?
Down in the bottom should be a green share screen button.
I love how we rediscover this every month. Every month we're like, how is this working?
Dude, I can't remember what I did yesterday. You want me to remember how to use an application?
I'm not judging. I just think it's funny, like, that we all go through the same process every time.
I'm just judging myself. I have like no idea what I'm doing.
There you go. Cool. Mike,
But hey,
everybody.
I'm not actually gonna be able to see the chat. This sucks. Fucking Zoom. All right. Hey everybody, thank you for coming. Really happy that you're here, and continuing to learn despite everything that's going on around the world, in the world around us. It's great that we still have people attending the meetup and wanting to better themselves and hear people talk about things. That's always good. I can't see the chat, and this is really going to make this first question kind of moot.
I will keep an eye on the chat for you.
Thank you. In the chat, I just want to know how many people have heard of declarative and imperative programming. So give me like a B if you've heard of it, or a P if you haven't heard of it. And again, this is where actually being able to see the chat would be great. We're seeing people.
And also next time.
Something.
And also, Mike, I'm trying polling for the first time in this. So had I known you needed a poll, I could have made you one.
I'm a bad participant. Which letter is which?
A B, right? It looks like a B.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Or a
Yeah.
P, maybe a Q, depending on if you want to, you know, be a jerk.
Sure.
Well, I'm a jerk into capitalized B.
Yeah, I don't know what that means. All right, so it looks like a good mix. All right, that's awesome. This makes me so happy that it's not, you know, all one way or the other. So I want to talk about declarative and imperative programming, subtitle, and exclamatory introduction with interrogative explanations. This doesn't really mean anything. These are just the 4 different types of sentences that you can have in the English language. So I thought it was kind of funny. But really, declarative and imperative programming, it's just a paradigm that exists in our profession. And, you know, as I was researching this, you know, one of the things that really stuck out to me in one of the explanations that I saw was that it really is a spectrum. You might start out writing very imperative code and then eventually get over to declarative. But then depending on what you're actually doing, you might end up somewhere in between. So sometimes you might write imperative code because that's what is necessary. Other times you'll write declarative code just because, you know, that's kind of what you want to do. But before we get into that, fucking Zoom. There it is. A little bit about me. I'm Mike Frazier. I'm a software engineer at Quizlet. In my past life, I was a high school science teacher. Hobbies include skating and snowboarding, reading, doing music stuff. A zodiac sign is Aries. Do with that what you want. If you want to see some dumb things that I've written in a while, at @AFrageGuy on Twitter. If you want to hit me up after this, I'm at Frazier on Denver Devs. And if you want to see a blog that is quite outdated and hasn't been updated in, I don't know, 18 months, let's say, go to mikedoescoding.com and you can probably read this same presentation but in blog form. All right, so I want to start this off with just a real kind of like quick question. How would you describe the process of making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich to someone who has never seen a sandwich before? So as I said, I was a science teacher, so this was an activity that we would do with students when we were trying to teach them about writing lab procedures. You know, if you had someone that has never seen a sandwich before, how would you describe that process? Because it's easy for us as people that probably grew up on PB&Js to just say, well, like you get 2 pieces of bread, you put peanut butter on one side, jelly on the other side, you put the 2 pieces together. But for someone who has never seen a sandwich before, they might just take an entire loaf of bread, take the jar of peanut butter and put it in there, take another loaf of bread, put the jelly in it, and then maybe smash them together, who knows. But another way that maybe we can think about this that's probably a little more appropriate for how we, get around today. How would you describe the way to get to your house? Situation A, if this person has an internet-enabled phone, or if the person only has an atlas in her car. So either way, you're gonna have sort of 2 different ways that you would want to describe this, that you would relay your steps to this person. And that really gets into the difference between imperative code and declarative code. So imperative programming is writing steps that explain how to complete a task. So this would mean describing in excruciating detail how to open a bag of bread, or saying when you get to this intersection, you take a right. When you hear the beehive, you take a left. Something like that. Declarative programming is writing more about what to do. So this would mean, saying for our sandwich, put peanut butter on the bread. You're not saying how to do it, you're just saying what to do. So that's the major difference between imperative and declarative. How we want to do something versus what we want to do. Can I get thumbs in the chat if this is resonating so far. We'll take a look at a B or a P or a Q, whatever you want to do. All right, cool. And we're definitely going to take a look at some medium thumb. That sounds good. So we'll take a look at a few examples here. Easy enough here. We have an array and we just want to log everything that's in the array. So we have 1 through 6. This helper function here called log takes in a value, and then we can call console.log with that value. With our imperative code, we have to say how we're going to do this. So for our array, we need to basically tell the computer how we want it to iterate. So starting out at 0, and while we are less than the length of the array, and then doing incrementing afterwards, we want to log the value of the, at that index. For a declarative code, we can use the baked in for each method, which behind the scenes has imperative code saying, how we want to do the looping and the iterating. But for our purposes, we can just say, on my array, for each item, call the log function. And that's it. So we're saying what we want to have happen for our declarative code. For our imperative, we're saying what we want, or we're saying how we want it done. Pretty easy, pretty straightforward example. Our next one, I'm gonna stick with the arrays, and I promise we will actually get to something that's more applicable to what we do. We want to double everything that's in the array. So we have our double function, takes in a value, returns the value times 2. For our imperative code, we need to declare our doubles collection. So that's our doubles array here. We need to say how we're going to iterate over it. And then we also need to say how we're going to collect the values. So we're iterating, starting at 0, going less than the length, incrementing our counter. And then in our doubles array, we are pushing the result of doubling the value at that index. So we have to do all of this work to collect these values. And in case you don't believe me, if you log this out, you do get 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 numbers. For the declarative code, again, we get to kind of cheat here. We get to use the array prototype map function, and we just get to tell it on our number array, map over it, and call the double function on every value. So we get to say what we want to do, map it, and call double. And again, if you, behind the scenes, there are things going on that are collecting the values, calling the function, doing all of the iteration, but we don't have to worry about it. Resonating so far? Want to see something that actually, hopefully fits in with what we do? All right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah? Are you sure? Matt, are you sure?
Stop holding up the lunch line and explain.
No. Oh, shit, I got 13 seconds. Okay, a real example. DOM manipulation is the worst. I know that this is the way that I, started out a lot of my coding of like document, query selector, find the element that I want, add an event listener, remove the event listener, toggle a class, right? So I can get the class list and I can toggle it. If my button is valid, it's based off of some other, state thing, right? Again, we're just assuming that this is something that exists inside of our script here. So with our imperative stuff, we need to be explicit in, how we are doing these things. So adding an event listener is something that we have to put in and say how we're going to do it. Our declarative DOM manipulation or, sort of DOM creation, React does a lot of this good stuff for us. So in this kind of, half-baked idea here, we have a div with an ID of OK button. Our button has an on-click prop that we are then giving it the handle click function. Behind the scenes, React is binding everything together with the event listeners. And then even with our class name, we get to decide based on whatever we're passing in, if it is valid, we add this thing or we don't add this thing. So we do get a little bit more declarative types of things here of like what we want this to look like versus how we actually have to go through and set all of these things. So now, like the actual subtitle of this one is, like, what is the BFD? So like, why should I care about the difference between declarative and imperative code? And I know that when I started, I was very much on the imperative side, really making sure that everything was step by step. I understood what was going on. But we've seen in some of these examples that you do get to save lines of code, you do get to save characters if you move more towards the declarative side. For me personally, I've found it easier to jump back into a project after some time if it is written more declaratively. And it also gives you the added benefit of looking smarter in your code reviews. But really, there are trade-offs and considerations that we would want to think about here. If readability is something that's important to you, you would want to maybe stick with declarative code. Cognitive overhead is another one. Imperative and declarative, they each have their pitfalls. You need to know what all of the baked-in functions do. And with declarative code and with imperative code, you have to actually keep track of a lot of state inside of your head. Personal and professional choice, whatever you would like it to be. If you're concerned about runtime speed, probably stick more to imperative. The closer that you can get to actually, programming the electrons to do things, the faster it's going to run. I think that that's true. I hope that's true. And I'll pause here if there are any questions. Take a look at the chat. Guillermo seemed very excited.
I was really excited when you said just do on a real world example. I was so pumped.
Oh, well, that's good. All right, well, thank you so much. And I hope that you now can explain the difference between imperative and declarative code. And when you go into code review, you can be like, this is what that is, and look pretty smart.
You can push up your imaginary glasses if you don't wear glasses.
Round of applause for Mike Frazier. Woo! And our next.
Wait, there's a clap emoji. Rachel, I didn't know you could do that.
Oh,
clap. Oh, clap.
Yeah, at the bottom where it says reaction.
Our next speaker, you might know at the beginning of this meeting. Matt Webb, everyone. Yay!
Oh, yeah, that's right. I'm presenting.
I figured I wouldn't give you the awkward, I wouldn't let you do like the awkward thing of having to like literally be, I'm the next speaker. Just like do that. So Matt Webb, everyone.
All right, so I've launched a poll about unit testing. Please let me know if you can't see the poll. I'm guessing by that silence, everyone can see the poll. Okay, great. I see thumbs. That's good. All right, we'll leave that open for like another couple of seconds, or at least, okay, so we got 46%.
1 to 5, where which one is the most useful? 1 or 5?
5 is like you find it super useful.
Got it.
It's the best. I was actually really curious how many people would answer who the fuck enjoys writing unit tests. It's getting more and more popular. All right, so why this poll is going, looks there's just 3, 4 more people I haven't voted, which I'm probably one of them then, is to kind of give you a little preface. Like I was probably like a 2 if I told you how much I enjoyed or how much value I saw in writing UI It's specifically UI unit test, because it's like you're trying to test a UI component as a unit test. Like, you know, you would think that'd be more of like an end-to-end testing kind of strategy. Yeah, we got 12 out of 15. So it looks like most people are 3, about 58% of you, 4s and 5s. You know, good on you. You might already be doing what I'm going to be spouting today. And then do you actually find it like joyful experience? And only 25% said yes. And then it's like, no, meh, and who in the wants to do that? So I get you. Like, really, like for a long time, I was like, great, I now tested this function, worked when I clicked this button, and it is specifically to way this function like did it in a way that a user doesn't give 2 shits about. So I just didn't really care about unit testing, so I barely ever unit tested. So this is going to be a very, so this, when I talked about the hackathon project, this is roughly the presentation I gave there. And yes, this is PowerPoint, unfortunately, because that's what we use at Aetna. So React testing library, the correct way to write meaningful unit tests. I did not write a very lengthy description about myself like Mike did, but I'm Matt Webb. Hi. Senior software engineer at Aetna Health and founder and organizer of this meetup. And I believe this is the 3rd and maybe 4th time I've given a talk at this meetup in almost 6 years. So, you know, I would say totally maybe submit a talk so you don't have to listen to me. So what's wrong with our, and I say our current unit test because this is the presentation slightly modified that I gave to my company, which is we were testing implementation details, and that's not the way to go, all right? You can break, like if you're refactoring your code and it give you false negatives, it may not fail when you break the application code giving you false positives. This doesn't ensure that your code is accessible, and it sucks. We'll just say that. It sucks. I won't say what company this is, but when I was looking through the backlog of how many accessibility issues we have, there was a few, maybe just a few. Yeah, don't like that. And also, Mike, I love that we both use Office GIFs, and it's both of Michael. So we're here to talk about React testing library. It's focused on user interaction and accessibility first. Like it makes accessibility like a first-class citizen. It's actually now on the React documentation. This is the way you should test your React components. Like they say, please use this. I put support React hooks, but it looks like Enzyme may have fixed that issue. That was an issue for a while with Enzyme, that they didn't support that. I find I write tests way less time writing tests because I'm focused on the user experience and not the implementation. If anyone says 100% test coverage is important, I will argue with you all day because in my opinion, that is bullshit numbers. Better performance. And I say better performance over like what our current testing infrastructure is. Which is Karma, Mocha, Chai, Enzyme, Cinnamon, and some other things I think in there. The developer experience is very delightful, just even from error outputs or being able to say, you know, test this one little thing. And there's, you know, it goes on and on and on. And ignore that slide because that's more just a reminder for me for later. But so what we have here is we have the same to-do application. So if anyone doesn't know what a to-do app is, it's just that very simple app of like, here's my to-dos. I can either clear out my to-dos, I can add a new to-do, I can move my to-do, whatever. So I'm not gonna show the application because it doesn't really actually matter. But if you can imagine like an input saying like, hey, I want to add things to this list. But this is how, and I know this is, you know, everyone can write their tests differently, but in many companies that I've worked at, this is how I find that Enzyme tests have been written, which is usually like, you have the app, you have to find something, and it's usually by a class name.
Hey,
they'll find, yep.
I think it's only showing me the how do we move forward slide. I don't know if it didn't
God bless
share
America.
screen.
Let me redo that. Did I? Come on, share. How about now?
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, my bad. So this is how you would I've seen many of these applications being tested with Enzyme, which is saying like, hey, find this class name. Do we have that many in here? Which isn't great because, class names change, right? And they're not always the most descriptive to a screen, because like class names to a screen reader don't mean anything. Like this is us saying like, okay, I know how to grab this thing by a class name. You can simulate clicks and that it's fine, and then make sure it's been called. But like, here's like the real example that I want to leave with you today is how these differ so much. And it's, so you have to create the event, and this is like, so once you submit like the form, that input field, you're recreating the event target structure. You gotta say like target, okay, and then value, and then what it is. And then you're simulating the change with that event. And then you have to simulate the click, and then you're going to expect you have that thing. Now, a lot of people don't find anything wrong with this because they're like, okay, I know it's going to be this value, and I just fed it to my input, and I feel like that was good enough, right? I clicked it, it did the thing. So rewriting this in also React testing library, and I actually gave this talk with 2 other developers at Aetna. So this is kind of like, we did a group project of like, we took this to-do app, we wrote our tests in Enzyme, and we're like, great, let's now write the same testing logic, but using React testing library. And just to give you, sorry, I'm underprepared and didn't pull up one website. Yeah, they have an intro to their API explaining like how you should specifically test this. Oh, come on, no. All right, well, I will find that link, but they give you a list of like what different selectors you should use to test your React components. And the first thing they always tell you to do is to use role, like get by role or query by role. Like they have all these different selectors, but making sure you have the correct role assigned to an element is starting to ensure that you have the correct accessibility for screen readers. And we started going through this, and we were like, all right, get by role. And we're like, okay, list item. Shit, that actually doesn't seem to be a thing. So we found ourselves refactoring this code more and more, just because as we were trying to test this in the way of being a screen reader, it wasn't working. So I think what was actually one of the really nice things was when we rewrote that, like, you're going to now trigger this input. They have a part of their library called user event. What's really, sorry, I use this awesome little Google plugin called Great Suspender. So if you're a tab hoarder like I am, it helps free up resources. So what this allows you to do is it allows you to actually do like user like click, double click. And I think one of the most coolest things is tab. This wasn't always like the biggest thing for me, but until I worked at Aetna, where they actually have an entire like accessibility team, I had no idea how important like tab was to a screen reader and like just being able to test these kind of things. So back here into the test, we're using this event. So instead of like giving like the event structure, we're actually going to tell this user event to find this text box And we're actually going to tell it to type. Like we're actually going to emulate a user doing this. And all we're saying is, fake item. That's the entire value of someone's typing that. And we actually click it. It's not a simulation. Like this React testing library actually mounts the React component and you're actually interacting with it. And because it's like real, we actually have to do some async functions just to be able to say, hey, I'll wait for this content to be there, and we expect that new item that we added to be in the document. So just comparing, like when you're reading this, we're saying user event type. That makes sense. Okay, we're typing this thing in there. Okay, we clicked. Great. Now we're saying, hey, we need to wait for that thing we just said to do, make sure it exists. And then we say expect to be in the document. So kind of like what Mike was even talking about versus imperative and declarative, like even this comes into that too, where we're saying very much so like this to me is more imperative versus this is very declarative where it makes more sense. Like I can actually read this test and read it with like the actual words that are happening in the function and understand what's happening versus here I'm saying like, okay, we had the app, okay, we're finding this class name. And I know I may be like being a little dramatic on like, that's not readable. It's totally readable, but still in real words, to me, this is more readable. So another thing to kind of mention with this is, great, this is unit testing. What about end-to-end testing? Oh, snap. They also have support for Cypress. So you can take all these same roles or rules for testing and putting accessibility first. So if your unit test can handle a screen reader and then your end-to-end testing can handle a screen reader, like you're going to be golden. It's going to be a really good experience for all users. So a lot of people are like, so I work in this application and I need to be able to I want to be able to implement this. Like, how do you go about that? So what I ended up doing was, so one of the application I work in daily is Enzyme, Karma, Mocha Chai. It's heavy. The tests are horrible, and I didn't like it. So a hackathon came up, and I said, I want to be able to prove to this company that one, we don't have to make a full-on swap over. Like both ecosystems can live side by side and also have a migration plan. So the hackathon was me just basically showing, yeah, both can actually work side by side. And then the second part was showing how do we move forward? And even though as much as I hate Enzyme, we had to move into Jest first, which guess what? Enzyme works with Jest. So while we can't get rid of Enzyme at the same time, we are able to start converting those over from Mocha Chai tests with Enzyme to be Jest and Mocha Chai by using code mods. Code mods allow you to take certain technology and port it over into the new technology. So Jest has a code mod for that. And with a little bit of finagling, I actually was able to convert a really large test in about 5 minutes. So I was able to take all that proof of concept, present it to a lot of developers, and everyone thought that was a great idea and said I should move forward with it. And I just worked with my boss and a few other people, and we're actually like, it's a ticket in our system to make this a real thing. It's not going to happen overnight, but it's just great to be able to see like, here's a great piece of technology. Here's why it's so good for us in the business, and why or how we can actually do it without, creating some crazy ass, like everyone take 2 weeks and just start converting tests over. But yeah, that's pretty much why I am sold on React Testing Library. If you haven't seen it before, Ken C. Dodds is the one who started React Testing Library. And he actually made a website, or a whole class for us. It's called testingjavascript.com. It is a little pricey. If you wait until like Black Friday, I think he usually does a heavily discount on that. But it is a very in-depth JavaScript testing course, and it's not just for React testing library. He even talks about like almost writing your own little mini like JavaScript testing framework, which is like his mini implementation of React testing library, which I highly recommend. If anyone who doesn't find testing delightful experience, I actually didn't find React or testing to be fun at all. And then after taking this course and actually using React testing library, I actually look forward to writing tests, which sounds weird as hell to me, but still, it's pretty awesome. That's it. That's all I got for you. Looks like we definitely have time for some questions.
Round of applause for Matt in the meantime while you think of your questions. Woo!
And I know this can be a very touchy subject, so, you know, feel free. You don't have to be gentle with me. Come out with any questions. It's okay.
So this is maybe more of like a testing theory question, but we have unit tests right now in one of our components that are functioning, like we're using React testing library, and they are really more integration tests. And I'm wondering, like, I know Cypress is good for end-to-end testing. Is it also good for integration testing? And like, I'm just curious, what are y'all using at Aetna for each of those things?
Talking about the application I work in.
People or sorry.
Yeah, yeah. No, their integration tests right now are like Cucumber and something else, Ruby stuff, and luckily I don't have to touch any of that. We're working on the effort to use Cypress as our new integration and end-to-end testing. And with Cypress, you can do both, right? I mean, technically, if you're writing the end-to-end testing and everything still functions with those endpoints, you've really done an integration test also. But yeah, I mean, if you're using React testing library to still do integration tests, it's not the end of the world, but it's more like if you can still do the user side of things, and then, if there's some integration testing you need to use it for, I think that's perfectly fine. It's I might be going a little too strict on like the how you should test it, and like it's that like one little bullet point of like the first thing, like always get by the role, and then like the last thing is like if you have no other choice than a testing ID attribute, fine, use that. But they're like that's the last case scenario, and the reason is like none of that stuff is like a screen reader. It sees the data test attribute. You know what it says? I don't know what that is. So it goes by the role first, and then it's just like what are those like little, different definitions of like how do you select this thing that a screen reader would actually interpret. I don't know if that answered your question, but
it did. Thank you.
Okay. And just like another, like what you're saying, like integration tests, what's kind of really sweet about it is it because it really mounts it as a React testing, like a React component, this like shallow mount or like mount whatever for, Enzyme. With this, it's like, hey, I need to actually test this with my Redux store, and like you're like, oh, I got to stub the store, I got to stub this function, do this, and it's like, nah, you just import Redux and you can actually connect it to a store because it's just mounted as a component.
The other thing I really liked that I found out too late is the debug, where it lets you see the like React testing library DOM. It's awesome.
Yeah, I love that too. A show of hands, those are on camera. Who's used React testing library before? Who wants to use it now? Right answer. Guillermo, you failed me.
Sorry, I just saw a notification that said that somebody waited 20 minutes to be let in, and then they just left. And I feel really bad because I've been watching this thing and I didn't see, I've let everybody that was there. So now it seems like I failed twice, but I promise I was watching for the meeting room.
I'm going to do my darndest to get rid of that damn waiting room because I swear to God I did it, but Zoom, you know.
I feel so bad. I was constantly watching, be like, oh man, I hope nobody comes in like late and I just missed them. But like, I wonder if like maybe after a certain time the meeting room shuts down. Sorry, I totally threw off your thing, but I was like just looking at that message that came through. My bad.
No, and I actually keep up the meetup channel because I think Melissa, she said she, for whatever reason, the meetup webpage wasn't showing the URL for whatever reason. It was, you know, awesome.
We'll work through it.
All right. Well, if no one has any other questions, thank you everyone for participating. If you missed the beginning of it, the presidential debate is at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, which is why we're trying to end this early. Decided or undecided, please get out there, vote. It actually matters, I think. But yes, do it. Vote.
And Mike just shared those links again. Thanks for saying that again, Mike. Top one is all the information you need to register and where, how, and when to vote. Second one is a bit.ly link for a live stream for today's debate. Thanks to Matt for putting together these sweet looking bit.ly links for it too.
All right, everyone. Thank you for joining, and until next month. Also, if you want to submit a talk, please hit me, Mike, or Guillermo up on Denver Dev's Twitter, the meetup webpage, or, you know, there's about a million different ways you can get a hold of us to submit a talk. So awesome. Thank you, everyone.
Have a great month. See you next time.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.